Hey, this is Josh from Cattle Decapitation. You're watching CMS TV.
It is Chris Akin Presents, and I, of course, am Chris Akin, and today we are getting heavy, and when I say heavy, I do mean extremely heavy. New record from the band Creeping Death is called Boundless Domain. It is out June the 16th. It will hit you in the face like a sledgehammer and then crash into you like a car. It is one of the heaviest records I have heard in at least a year. It's fantastic, and here to tell us all about it is Mr. Trey Pemberton. Trey, how are you, man?
Doing all right. How are you?
Good, man. Good to talk to you, man. And as I told you before we started, I love this record, dude. It is such an ass kicker. And at a time that we need it, at a time when it just seems like everybody else is, I don't want to say getting softer, but it just seems like everything that's coming out is trying to be a little more rhythmic and a little more, verse, chorus, verse-ish. This is just straight up punishment, man, which I love. So why don't we start there, man? Tell us all about this record, man. It definitely comes at the end of the pandemic. So lots of rage to build up, I guess. So why don't we start there with maybe getting just a little bit of info about this record?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, when everything shut down, we were just touring off of our first record. So we didn't really have anything like written or recorded or anything like that. So we just kind of, it was like the one place that we knew we could kind of like, do something that wasn't just like sitting at home. So we went to our jam space and wrote a bunch of music, and some of it became the EP, The Edge of Existence, which came out before this LP. Right. And then we saved the rest of it for the LP, and then continued to write more songs and, add more layers and things like that. And then towards the end of that process, Adam D actually expressed interest in wanting to record us. So, our bass player being a huge Killswitch fan, and, all of his albums, like, they may be a different, like, sort of style, genre, whatever, but all of his albums sound like, crisp and good. So we knew that he knew what he was doing. And, so we went with him, and, he gave us some future notes, move some things around, add this part, do this, we'll add layers and different harmonies and just different chords over different stuff, make stuff sound bigger. And, that's just kind of how it like, progressed after a while. So yeah, it was a like a longer process than we usually take to write. But it's because we had the time to actually take, because we weren't, obviously weren't touring for like a year and a half, 2 years. So it was cool. I think it made for, a better product. And then Adam, just being the kind of meticulous producer he is, it's just like, he only takes the best of the best kind of takes. So it forced us to become better musicians, just like playing our instruments. So yeah, I think all of that came together, and, it made for a pretty sweet product.
Sure. Now I got to ask, a band like yours, generally, y'all know what you want to do. To bring somebody else in with a lot of success, as Killswitch obviously has a lot of success, but not in your genre. I have to imagine that had to be difficult to take direction. And if you didn't like some of the direction, I could imagine it's real easy to be like, what do you fucking know? You don't play this kind of music. You know, how was it taking direction from somebody outside of your sphere?
Oh, it was super easy. Adam is super cool. He was the first thing. He was like, listen, he's like, all of these suggestions I give, like at the end of the day, like you're the customer, so
Okay.
you need to be happy with it. So if you, he's like, you can just tell me to fuck off if you don't like my idea.
Right.
And he's like actually like, believe it or not, super into death metal. He actually has a death metal project with Corpse Grinder. Like I forget
Okay.
what the name of it's called, but they have like a band together and they're like really close friends. So he knows what's up like about death metal, you know. So um with that like knowledge too, it's just like most of his ideas, like you know, literally 90% of them we were like definitely on board for. And if we weren't, we were just like, yeah, I don't know about that. And he was just like, cool. And then just like moved on. So yeah, it was super easy. And you know, personally, like I feel like we're a band that we like to, you know, get ideas and pull ideas from different people because it's like personally, I'm not one of those people who can just write like a whole song or a whole album like by myself. I feel like it could always be better if I kind of bounced an idea off of like somebody I kind of valued their opinion on music,
Right.
whether it's like my bandmates or like a producer or something like that. So, you know, we've always been a pretty like collaborative band. So yeah, we don't really mind, you know, getting some tips from people here and there.
Right on, man. Well, dude, you know, we mentioned it at the start here, but you released a record kind of right before the pandemic started, and then you had to sit and wait like everybody else. Unfortunately, you guys are not Metallica. You don't have the Metallica money where it's like, we could sit for 2 or 3 years and wait. You know, I mean, I'm assuming the bread and butter of Creeping Death, the band, is touring. So
Absolutely.
not being able to tour, how did you, I mean, I know you do what you got to do to survive, but how do you survive as a band and keep the energy together as a band instead of falling apart?
Well, for us, we just kept writing like new music. We were just consistent with practicing and getting together and writing new music. And, you know, it was just like a really fun outlet at a time where it's like we really couldn't do anything. It was just like we really just could go to our jobs and then come home. Like not much stuff was open, you know, and there was no shows going on,
Right.
obviously. So it was like our one kind of fun thing. We were just, you know, get some, you know, alcohol and go smoke and hang out and write music and, you know, jam for a while. And so, yeah, like that, I think that definitely helped. So it kept us keep consistently like writing music over the whole thing. And once we figured out that like, okay, like shows are starting to come back, you're like, you know, we didn't want to have like nothing for like 4 years between releases. So that's why we did the EP. So it was like, all right, we have like enough new songs that we can pick the ones that we want for this, and we can keep working on the other ones for later, which we, you know, saved them for the LP. And then,
Right.
yeah, then we just re-recorded some old songs, and then, you know, we put that on the EP, and just kind of, and the timing actually worked out. We didn't when we were planning all this, we still didn't expect like for, you know, to be able to tour for a while. So we were just like, oh, you know, here's something that to kind of, you know, keep not forget about us, basically, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so, but it actually worked out because when it came out, it was like 2 weeks later we went on tour with Exhumed, and it
Right.
was like the first tour back after, you know, all of the pandemic shit. So yeah, it actually kind of worked out. We were able to tour off of a release basically right after everything like sort of opened back up. So we kind of got lucky with that timing, but yeah.
Right on. When you went back out on tour, you know, were you early in it? Were you one of the early bands, or did you wait until everybody was touring before you went back?
I would say we were on the sort of the not the first wave, but maybe
Okay.
like the middle wave. Like I would say, I think I started to see bands tour that starting that summer
Right.
of like 2020 2021, and ours was in the fall.
Okay.
So So yeah, I think, and then 2022 it was pretty much everybody was fully back. So I would say we were sort of on the middle half of that, literally on the right in the middle of the bell curve. I think right after that fall, when you saw bands like start to tour a lot more.
Right.
So
Which was probably good because I know I went and saw a couple of bands early. Like as soon as they opened the doors, I was like, yeah, let's go. And they were empty. You know, the shows were empty, and it was really disheartening for, you know, especially like one I always bring it up was I went and saw Seven Dust, who always, you know, Seven Dust always brings 1,500, 2,000 people. And I went and saw them and they brought 400 people. And I was like, oh my God, you know, are people never coming back? So it's probably cool. Well, I'll ask you, was when you did come back, were the crowds there or was it half or
oh
what
yeah,
was it?
oh no, it was like packed out. I think at the time I think our timing was better because at that point the vaccines had been released and they had been out for a while at that point, for like a few months. So I think people were starting to feel more comfortable, as opposed to earlier when it was like, you know, a lot of people hadn't quite gotten vaccinated, but the numbers had gotten high enough, and I think people were pretty much like okay enough to take the risk to go out at that point.
Right.
So I think it was fine, and for us, yeah, it was like it was lit. That tour was an amazing tour back. You know, it was one of our it was crazy. I remember we played, obviously like the Texas dates were sick. We expected that. But then we go to Albuquerque, and Albuquerque is like usually, you know, real shot, but
Right.
we played that. It was sold out. It was one of the craziest shows of the whole tour. And then ever since then, every time we have ever played Albuquerque, it's been insane. Like no matter who we're playing with, what we're playing with, like so. Just that just kind of goes to show, like after, you know, everything sort of came back, people were really like itching for it, and you know now a lot of people are back out. You know you see places like that were once places nobody wanted to go to, and now they're like places that are like having popping shows. You know, Boise, you know, places like that. You know, Little Rock has a lot of good shows I see going on, and it's places like that. You know, they just after pandemic, it's just like been exploding. So
Sure.
yeah.
Do you think that part of it too is that people are figuring out who you guys are, you know, as a band? Because let's face it, and you know this is not a surprise. Half the people that look for you find the Metallica song. You know, I mean, that's just the way it goes on Google.
Oh
and
yeah.
and I'm sure you wish you
Yeah,
could take that back.
not search into, yeah. If we ever thought like we were ever gonna play outside of, you know, the state of Texas, we would have put way more effort into thinking of a name than we did.
Right.
We basically picked the name because the promoter, our first show, we were basically so focused on the music and playing like tight and well for our first show that
Right.
we just all the other shit, we were like, we have our whole demo, we have our set, like let's just like worry about this, we'll think about all that shit later. And it was like 2 weeks before the show, and the promoter's like, hey, like we can't keep putting TBA on this flyer, like what is y'all's name, like what is it, like please just give me a name before like the end of the week so I can put you guys on the flyer. And we were like, oh fuck, so like what are we gonna do? And like a long time ago, it's like, and we were all like hardcore kids. We were just in hardcore bands before that, so
Sure.
we basically just wanted a name that was like, okay, if it's on a list with a bunch of like hardcore bands, people are gonna know that's like, oh, this is probably more like a metal band or something like that. And
Right.
one of our friends who wasn't even in the band had like a project with one of the kids that was in the band, and it was called Creeping Death, that they never kind of did anything with. And he was just like, hey, why don't we just use that name, and then like if we want to like change it later we can. And it's just like we just like, all right, on the floor. And then we did, and it was just like whatever. And then we put out the demo, and we were just surprised that anybody wanted to listen to it at all. So it was like, oh shit, like people actually kind of like this. And then after a while, when we were getting offers to like start playing out of town, we were like, all right, I think we might have like kind of fucked up. We probably should have thought about a different name. But I mean, it is what it is now. You just got to roll with it at this point.
Right on. Well, it's definitely working, man. I'll tell you what, man. Why don't we take a little break here, give the people a taste of what you're doing. I figure we give them a taste of one of the singles that you've put out here, The Common Breed. It's got a great video to it. Tell us about this video and about the song.
Okay. Yeah, we filmed this at a local venue called Amplified Live. That unfortunately is no longer a venue. It was one of my favorite places around town. The sound was great. All the staff was awesome. They had an inside stage, an outside stage. It was really sick. And so Lincoln at the time worked there, so they let us have this show.
Nice.
And so it was a sold out show inside, like towards the end of the year, basically almost on New Year's Eve. And yeah, it was just like we recorded the live video. All of the homies came out. People went crazy. It was a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I had recording any music video. So yeah.
All right. Well, let's check it out now. It is The Common Breed. It is Creeping Death right here on Chris Akin Presents. Right back here on Chris Akin Presents, we are here with guitarist Trey Pemberton of the band Creeping Death. And Trey, got to ask you, man, with the new record, Boundless Domain, and I'm assuming with everything that you do, you guys have a formula of how you write. How is it that you do write songs? Does somebody come up with a riff, or does it start with a vocal line? Where does it start for you guys when you're writing music?
Yeah, it always starts with like the music kind of part first, and then Reese will basically add vocals after all of the music is written. But yeah, it's sometimes either me or AJ will have like a riff we had on a voice memo, and we'll bring it to practice, and then we'll show it to everyone, and someone might have like add this here, or do like this, or do something like this, and then by the end of it being like in an actual song, it might be like a little piece of every single person in the room had like changed something. So it's not even sounding like what it sounded like on the original voice memo. So that's kind of like how we work a lot of times. And, it works for us. I know a lot that sounds kind of slow for like a lot of people, but I think we like gel pretty quick. And, sorry, fighter jet outside. Yeah. I live outside of the airport.
Nice.
Always crazy shit.
It's all good.
Yeah. So yeah, I just like we like the collaborative effort, like I was kind of talking about earlier.
Right.
Sometimes if the riff is just good enough, we're like, nope, that's good, we'll add it here. A lot of the times I'll like kind of like more pick the structure of like kind of how we do things and stuff like that. And then when I write a riff, I'm a drummer originally, so
Right.
I kind of like think of a drum beat first, and I kind of try to write a riff over a drum beat, which helps Lincoln, who's also an amazing drummer, so that we can kind of like speak and connect on like some of that like drummer language, and it just makes writing so much easier. So yeah, and sometimes it's just like we'll be like, okay, what kind of part do you want to come after this? What kind of drum beat do you want to come after this part that we just wrote? And then we'll be like, oh, let's play this beat. Like, let's do this beat after this. I think that'll be a good kind of transition. And we'll write a riff, or I'll try to come up with a riff like on the spot of like something that would fit over that sort of drum beat. So it's
Right.
like kind of I don't know, a weird kind of way, but I feel like it works for us.
Right on. Well, it definitely does, man. Now, dude, I'm going to tell you, everybody I talk to, I ask them about my favorite song on the record. With you guys, it was especially difficult because there's a lot of good stuff here. But I think I settled in just for the sheer brutality of it. I settled in on Creators Turned into Prey.
Okay.
What a monster, man! Tell me about this song, man, because that sucker is heavy.
Yeah, that's that was the working title for that song was obituary type beat. So that's kind of the vibe we were going for. But there's also some like Iron Age like influence big time on that song towards the end, just some different rhythmic stuff and definitely some like like you said, brutal like Cannibal Corpse like sort of heavy riffage going on too. So yeah, we just kind of wanted to blend of kind of a lot of different things with, keep it heavy, keep it fun.
Right. Well, it definitely is, man. It's such a good tune. And one of the things, man, and I going back and listening to your previous stuff and then comparing it to now, it just seems like you guys have definitely like grown very cohesive. It just, if you listen to the first stuff, it sounds like a lot of bands. This doesn't. This sounds like what you guys are, and that's it. It's funny. I talk to people all the time about who I'm interviewing and whatnot. And when I do talk to people, they ask people ask me what you guys sound like. I really didn't have an answer. I just said, sort of death metal. It's got a little metal or death core in it, kind of sort. You guys really have developed what I think is a very unique sound, and I would imagine that comes from playing together. No.
Yeah, playing together and also playing in just within our peers in the state of Texas, taking influence from like, it's like obviously it's like, yeah, we're a death metal band. And then like probably the first stuff when we're especially coming from hardcore, it's like we were just like, all right, like let's just write as metal as we possibly can. Then now adding more influences here. Like you don't want it to sound disjointed, so you
Right.
have to find a way for it to all be cohesive and still, like have all the influences that you like sort of want to choose. And yeah, we just started adding more stuff and trying to be more thoughtful about how we like incorporated that and stuff like that. So yeah, a lot of Texas hardcore in that, definitely still all the death metal bands that originally influenced us are all the same, but adding more of, like I said, Texas hardcore, Power Trip, Mammoth Grinder, Iron Age
Sure.
influence, and then also adding, more of a, death influence too there, some on some parts.
Mhm.
So yeah, so like just kind of like trying to bring it all together without it sounding like too, like you said, like all of like sounding like two just different bands.
Right, definitely, man. Well, dude, with Boundless Domain, for people that want to buy it, which should be everybody, nobody should just stream it. Even if you buy one song, at least buy something to help these guys roll. But the one decision I saw that I always find interesting these days, you guys decided to release cassettes. Why the cassettes? Is that just kind of a nod to the old school or what?
Yeah, just like it's a just another collector's item, like been again just coming from like hardcore, it's like tapes are always like a thing, especially for like a newer band. It's like usually a band comes out, they release a demo, and like somebody will put out the tape for them, and then they have like 15, 20 tapes, and they're just collectible kind of thing. So we just kind of wanted to give a little throwback to that, kind of like to our roots, where we came from, kind of thing. People like collecting stuff like that too.
Right.
So we haven't had a tape in a minute. It's like we'll still get messages, people asking us about like the tapes for our first like EP and stuff like that. And I'm like, yo, those are gone. There's only 50 of those that exist at all. So good luck.
Right. Then they roll up to your gig in a 1994 Honda or something so they can play it, right?
Yeah.
Nice. Well, dude, obviously, man, the biggest, I guess, newsy piece of the new record is that you did record with Corpse Grinder on Intestinal Rap, and you put out the video for that as well, which we will end with. But tell me a little bit about working with him, and I'm imagining that Adam D brought him into the mix, but tell me a little bit about how he came to be mixed in with you guys.
Actually, it was we're on the same like management group, like
Okay.
yeah, us and then Adam and like Corpse Grinder, like we're all in the same management group. So basically, our manager was just like, "Hey, would you guys be interested on having a like a Corpse Grinder feature like on it, any of the songs?" And we were already in the studio with Adam at this time, and like that song was already recorded, and we immediately knew it was like, yeah, this is like the one like really gory, brutal song of the album. Like this has got to be the one. So it was pretty much unanimous from the time that he texted us. Like I'm pretty sure we were all like, some people were at the Airbnb, a couple people were still at the studio, and I'm pretty sure we all responded like at the same time, like yes, and this song. Like so, it came together pretty quick. And then the next thing I know, like after a couple of weeks, it's like, oh, here's the track, and they sent it back. So it all came together like pretty easy.
Very cool, man. Well, like you said, we'll play it here in a second, but first let's remind the people the new album from Creeping Death is called Boundless Domain. It is out 2 weeks, June 16th. It comes out. Make sure you buy it. Do not just stream it, but buy it. And dude, where should we send people to buy the pre-orders or keep up with you guys with tour dates and all that good stuff?
You can follow us on social media at Creeping Death TX on Twitter, Instagram. Search Creeping Death on Facebook. We actually come up first now. So,
okay.
So yeah, all those for socials. And if you're not a social media person, you can go to creepingdeath.net. You can find all the same information. So yeah, tour dates, tickets, and just to keep up with us. You can join the email list if that's your speed too. So lots of options for everybody.
Very good. Well, one more time, it is Boundless Domain. It is Creeping Death, and we're going to wrap it up with Intestinal Rap. So real quick, one last time, Boundless Domain, Creeping Death is the band. And Trey, thanks so much for joining me here on Chris Akin Presents.
Of course. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.